Nikke Goddess of Victory has one of my favorite video game stories, and I want to share it with you. This is part 7 in a series designed to appeal to both newcomers and veterans alike. We'll be blazing through the main narrative at an accelerated pace, with a spoiler section at the end for juicier details. If you like my content, please consider signing up as a channel member. It's by far the best way to support me. Last we left off, the commander made the harsh decision of sending Marion off to the surface, where she could safely be watched over by pilgrims. They were just an intermediary, but the Pioneers squad escorted Marion to her new home while teaching her both useful and often peculiar lessons. These pilgrims play a huge role in the story, but most of their development comes from side events. Now that we've had a chance to meet them, it's time to venture back in time to discover how things got this way. Before returning to the main story, the following videos will cover New Year, New Sword, Red Ash, and Overzone, all of which are essential to understanding the Pilgrims and their history as the Goddess Squad. New Year, New Sword happens to be the furthest point back in the overall timeline, describing Scarlet's experience before joining the Goddesses. The event is framed as a flashback, where Scarlet regales the commander of her daunting past. It starts off with the commander and several other Nikke squads attending an exclusive New Year's concert put on by Noise from the Prima Donna squad. I suppose now is as good a time as any to introduce these musical maidens. Prima Donna is a trio of musicians arranged by Tetraline. One of the ways that Nikkes develop a positive image comes from the work of idols and performers. The most famous of these celebrities was named Pretty. She inspired humans and Nikkes alike during the Second Surface Reclamation War. After a legendary career, she was tragically murdered by a Nikke-phobic intruder while performing her comeback concert. As awful as that was, Pretty still did a great job combating the ever-growing Nikke phobia of her time. You could say the girls of Prima Donna are meant to carry on that legacy. While she doesn't appear in this event, Volume is Prima Donna's loud, obnoxious, smack-talking rapper. In contrast to her peers, Volume is eager to provoke controversy and rides that chaos to maintain her popularity. She sees her career as an opportunity to make money rather than pursue the art of music, and has garnered a following that openly accepts her irreverent attitude. The commander gets involved with her when she makes the news for swearing at a backup singer. Volume's antics push her manager to quit, so Mustang asks us to fill in. On stage, we find her shouting and throwing things at the audience while smashing instruments meant for other performers. Can we keep up with her? The commander has to intervene when Volume berates a staff member for accusing her of sleeping her way up the ladder. When she attacks the host of a radio show, we take her punch and fall unconscious. Despite this, we insist on trying to improve her public image by putting on a free concert. Its success puts her back on the map, and Volume repays the favor by drumming up a scandal where the two of them are a couple. Lucky for her, the commander agrees to date her for real, and she insists on speeding things up a bit. Should I count her for the naughty list? Probably. I doubt she's trying to speed her way into just kissing. On the opposite front, we have Aria, who sings classical, operatic music. This means she's both an actress and a musician, nailing the starring role in every production she takes on. She lives for drama and struggles with roles where she has to underperform. Given the commander's record helping Volume, Aria also recruits his help, calling him her maestro. For her latest role, Sophia, she's meant to come off as a flawed amateur, in total contrast to her usual perfection. Aria wants to embody this character, but has no idea how to rein in her own talent. Thus, she asks the commander to be her rehearsal partner, hoping he can help her find a balance between singing poorly, but not too poorly. The idea that we'd support her, even if she were an industry nobody, gives her some hope. She practices in a sketchy bar with disrespectful patrons, giving her a different perspective that helps her nail Sophia's wavering demeanor. After another successful performance, Aria thanks the commander with a private encore. Noise, the Nikke who does appear in this event, is a talented pop star whose debut single, Diva, rocketed her to stardom. Her rise to fame came suddenly, and she worries her new songs won't be nearly as successful. She fears becoming a one-hit wonder, but is just as afraid of disappointing her fans. Mustang suggests she consult the commander for advice on her latest song. Unfortunately, we don't have the makings of a producer, and Anise accidentally sends us the wrong reference material to study. This has the commander arrogantly try to redefine her image like some kind of corporate idol rather than an artist. Still, Noise discovers there are things she can learn by embracing the idol scene, such as meeting her fans in person and hand-signing their autographs. Before, she thought she could only communicate to them through televised song. The commander pushes her to be more genuine by tricking her into an impromptu street concert where she'll preview her next track. This forces her to come up with something fresh in just 2 hours. Under pressure, she has no choice but to overcome her perfectionism, and it turns out that her genuine approach goes over better than expected. Noise later admits in an interview that her new hit, My Wonder, is a love song, implying it's for the commander. As you can see, Noise's newfound confidence has her putting on this special New Year's concert at the Outpost. To thank the commander for all his help, she steps off stage for a bit and hands him an artificial rose before kissing him on the cheek in front of her many romantic rivals. This results in the commander needing to escape somewhere while the tension dies down. Coming to the rescue is Scarlet, who stopped by the Outpost hoping to share a drink with us. Remember, the Outpost is easily accessible from the surface, and the pilgrims don't see visiting it as a deal-breaker. Still, since the commander needs to escape, Scarlet suggests they venture out to the surface to rein in the New Year's sunrise. Noticing our fake Rose gives her a tinge of nostalgia. Throughout her time as a Nikke, Scarlet has suffered through several mind switches. This has caused her to forget a great deal about her past, but no matter how many times it happens, she can't seem to forget the time she spent with her sister, whose name is Rose. Insisting on a 2-hour trek to the perfect vantage point, Scarlet entertains us by recounting these precious memories. This takes us back to the very beginning, the first Rapture invasion. Back then, there was no central government. Rather, military efforts were handled by the United Forces of Humanity. There was still hope back then of defeating the Raptures, with Nikke development in full swing. Humanity manufactured plenty of mass-produced Nikkes, but the very first unique model was a woman named Liliweiss, hosted by the brain of the military's youngest ace pilot. To many, she is considered the strongest Nikke, a prototype who pulled out all the stops, even though it resulted in a lower life expectancy. Most Rapture combat is done with ranged weaponry, but Liliweiss was famously able to tear apart Raptures with her bare hands. Curious in the potential of melee weaponry, the United Forces of Humanity experimented with an exclusive melee squad of sword-wielding Nikkes. This was where Scarlet and her sister Rose made their debut. They, along with their squad mates, were experimental mass-production models. Normally, these Nikkes don't remember their past, but Scarlet and Rose at least recall being siblings in their human life. It was apparently a profound memory for both of them, though they can't confirm whether it was a good or bad memory. Hilariously, Scarlet emerged as a Nikke who spoke like she was from the Middle Ages. Neither of them can remember where that came from. It's a mysterious little quirk that I find endearing. The Melee Squad spent much of their early days training rigorously on simulated Raptures. Scarlet and Rose would constantly spar against each other. Rose had bested her sister 975 times, with only 10 draws. There was no doubt that Rose was elite among her squad mates, though she tried to play down her achievements by stressing how useless she was at everything else. Scarlet was adept at cooking and organization, but never thought those actually mattered as Nikkes. Nonetheless, Rose insisted her winning streak would end someday. No flower blooms forever, and eventually, Scarlet would have her victory. During this time, a Spartan group of Nikkes called the Goddess Squad were making a name for themselves, finally reclaiming parts of the surface lost to Rapture invasion. Hoping to emulate their success, the UFH chose to utilize the 10-member Melee Squad in a similar manner. As such, they were assigned both a human commander and their very first mission. Rose was named the squad leader for her outstanding test scores. These girls were eager to finally take on real Raptures, but when the day came, fear took over them. Rose, however, encouraged Scarlet by insisting even Liliweiss must have been afraid on her first mission. After dropping into a mass of raptures and dicing them to bits, Rose convinced Scarlet, and by extension the other sword maidens, to descend. Their mission ended flawlessly, leading to further missions coming their way. Melee Squad specialized in agility, allowing them to fight raptures up close. This made them an elite unit capable of reclaiming lost UFH bases. However, it also came with downsides. The members of Melee Squad took more damage than the average Nikke, and their close encounters put them at a higher risk of mind switching. Still, Scarlet and Rose thought their accolades more than made up for it. Their commander was a strange one. Even though the human component of a Nikke squad was typically referred to as commander, this guy insisted they use his actual rank in the military, lieutenant. Much like Birmingham, their lieutenant would often stutter and envied the legendary commander of the Goddess Squad. While he was to be their benefactor, the lieutenant never seemed to care much about his squad's well-being. This became an issue when Rose inquired about their missing supplies, which were over a week late. The lieutenant insisted delays were inevitable, given the UFH's current struggles. Even without supplies, Melee Squad kept their casualties to a minimum, hoping to one day graduate from an experimental unit to an official squad. The thought of fighting alongside the goddesses was their dream. Scarlet, in particular, wanted to finally best her sister in a duel without armor. During one of their missions, Rose procured a bottle of liquor to share with Scarlet. It might seem strange now, but back then, Scarlet scoffed at the idea of drinking on the job. Even so, she gave it a sip and found it was too bitter for her own liking. She was the odd one out, as Rose and the other Melee Nikkes decided to celebrate with a drink on New Year's Eve, which is coming up in just a few days. Eventually, Rose noticed their missions were getting more and more difficult. Their squad of 10 had been reduced to just 6. After each outing, she inquired about their missing supplies and continually got denied. It was then that the lieutenant announced that after one more mission, Melee Squad would finally be recognized with its own name. Everyone's spirits grew, though Rose's would plummet immediately after speaking with the lieutenant in private. Basically, regardless of their many successful missions, Melee Squad was deemed too costly to maintain, given their frequent repairs and mind switches. The UFH had chosen to abandon close-range Nikkes, conceding to only salvage the very best member of their squad. Their missions had gotten more unfair in an effort to weed them out to their last, strongest survivor. Only when one of them remained would the military upgrade them into a specialized Grimm's model. Surely you've noticed by now that several Nikkes are named after fairy tales, like Rapunzel, Snow White, and Red Hood. Anyone with such a name was a top-tier model built from considerable investment. The thought of being upgraded to the Grimm series was alluring, but not at the cost of all their squad mates. Regardless, Rose's protests were quickly dismissed. The lieutenant expected her to keep this a secret, confident that she would be the last survivor. That night, Rose visited Scarlet and proposed rebelling against the military altogether. She refused to explain what she talked about with the lieutenant, yet had the gall to consider murdering him. At the very least, Rose tried selling the idea as a way to give their superiors a wake-up call and finally send supplies. Of course, Scarlet refused, proclaiming that a rebellion would betray all those who fought and died till now. Even though their next mission was practically suicidal, Scarlet insisted she'd rather die on her own terms. For a time, it seemed she was able to convince Rose to step down. However, even later into the night, all hell broke loose as Rose went on a rampage, aiming for the lieutenant while chopping down a squad mate who opposed her. 2 Nikkes who supported Rose's rebellion guarded the hall, forcing Scarlet to kill them to get to her sister. Out on the surface, under the moonlight, Rose finally explained what the UFH had in store for them. Sure enough, she had killed the lieutenant, along with another of her squad mates. How though? Didn't Rose have inhibitors preventing her from attacking humans? Yes, but she found a loophole. With the aid of a red blindfold, which was the same color as a rapture's core, Rose was able to trick her mind into swinging at her superior. It was here that Rose presented an ultimatum. She would continue her rebellion by going on to kill humans indiscriminately unless Scarlet stopped her. In other words, she provoked her own sister into mortal combat. Across their combined 985 sparring matches, this one would prove their last. Their blades clashed fiercely through the night, but in the end, Scarlet found herself on track to deliver a killing blow. Despite victory being within reach, she hesitated to kill her sister. That's when Rose took the matter into her own hands, declaring herself the loser before grasping Scarlet's sword and shoving it through her core. With her dying breath, Rose urged Scarlet to get stronger, strong enough that nobody would hold control over her. Well, it wasn't from a mission, but the melee squad nonetheless found itself reduced to a single survivor. After the UFH investigated the matter, they chose to conceal how Rose had learned to kill humans. They confiscated Scarlet's sword, which had been damaged, but she held on to Rose's blade, fleetly fading, later upgrading it with the remnants of her sister's core. In a stroke of irony, Scarlet would eventually be recruited into the Goddess Squad, like her former teammates had always wanted. She never did get to share that bottle of liquor with them, but has since taken up drinking to ease her mental woes. She always carries around 2 cups, drinking her sister's share as a gesture of mourning. Now, however, Scarlet can share drinks with the commander, and wonders how different things would have been had he been alive back then. Upon telling her story, she finally gains the courage to open up that bottle she planned to drink with Melee Squad. The extra century of waiting has made the drink even more bitter, which she now finds comforting. She and the commander enjoy a crimson New Year's sunrise, and after so many years of wandering the surface, she finally lays eyes on a real Rose standing tall out of the ground. This is especially meaningful for her, as one of her lifelong dreams is to become a farmer and grow her very own plants. Hopefully one day she can retire her sword in favor of a hoe. In the meantime, she'll just have to continue being a badass.
Hey guys, Dai-chan here. Many themes and actions taken here reverberate and echo what occurs later. Even the stuff I said about Prima Donna counts, as them carrying on Pretty's legacy comes round with a niece much later. You see, after Pretty was murdered, Mustang opted to turn her body into an expensive armament called Star. He wants to have a niece wear it into combat as a pop star who both sings and fights. While we're on the topic, I just have to bring up Mustang. He's the only one of the big 3 CEOs to have always held his position over the years. This makes me wonder just how old he is. The implication is that he's long since transcended an average human lifespan. While I'm not sure how he pulls it off, he's not the only human in this story with such a legacy. Anderson, who's heavily implied to be the legendary commander of Goddess, has been alive just as long, if not longer. In his case, though, we see him barely hanging on with the use of life support that's powered by the Ark. That's why he's always late for an appointment. It's his excuse to go treat his ailing body. Another example is Johann, who's been alive since the Second Surface Reclamation War. Much of him has been replaced by cybernetics. What about Mustang, though? Does he just endure through sheer charisma? If that's what it actually came down to, I'd just laugh it off and accept it. Rose's method of killing humans despite her inhibitor winds up echoing much later with Crow, who implements a similar strategy of firing bullets that ricochet into her desired target. The key component seems to be Nikke's awareness that their actions may harm a human, which can be overridden with the right perspective. All you have to do is convince yourself you're attacking something else. This is much easier for Nikkes who develop resentment for humanity. Even though it's rare, it's rather pathetic how people have known about these loopholes for 100 years and still haven't found a solution to it. Of course, we now know that Rose is still alive somehow, with a big gaping hole where her core used to be. Despite serving the villain Red Shoes, it seems Rose still cares about Scarlet and doesn't want to haunt her sister with news of her revival. Liliweiss may be considered a melee fighter, but most of her attacks don't really qualify as punches. It's like she can send projectiles simply by waving her hands, or make things explode remotely like Roy Mustang. Either way, she's really cool. She may be the very first Nikke, but I feel we have to take that with a grain of salt. More specifically, she's the first of the unique Nikkes built with more humanoid bodies. Recall that humanity experimented with other designs that proved unfeasible due to mind switching. I suppose a cannon equipped with a human brain and green blood doesn't quite count as a complete Nikke. That said, she can't be that much older than her peers, as they're all fighting in the same squad together. Corruption's another one of those misleading phenomena. The nefarious Red Shoes is credited as the mother of corruption as we know it. Before her experiments, corruption was a very benign technique the Raptures tried to use during their early invasion. It never had the power to compel Nikkes to believe they were Raptures in service to the Queen. That came from Red Shoes' desire to join the Raptures rather than fight them. Cinderella is credited as becoming the story's very first heretic, but it seems corruption was a well-known threat before she turned into Enichiro. Red Hood was struggling with it, and Rapunzel had been working to cure it even before that. It would be nice to see a more detailed timeline of these earliest developments. Considering the Red Ash event takes place 4 years after the Rapture invasion started, it's safe to say all these early developments came fast, making it hard to pinpoint exactly how it all played out. I suppose that, on the battlefield, even a single year can feel like an eternity. Speaking of Red Ash, that just so happens to be the topic of our next episode. It's one of Nikke's best events, so I hope you're excited. I'll try to fit the smaller spin-off event Nonsense Red in there too. For now, be sure to keep tabs on this series' unofficial playlist on my channel page and after the credits. Until next time, celebrate your fandom!
I want to give a special shout out to all my $10 and up supporters. Video Gamer 75, Dante Pendragon, Stephen Elak, Mystic Samurai 1983, Otaku Mom, Freebrick, Alexis Yukio Gomez Yamato, Lunar Works, Link Pendrago, Observer Bellis, James Hewitt, Uncanny EXP, Crow Calum, Saul Soto, Major, Matal Mataru, Winter's Edge, Sneer Cachette, Sunbro Torian, Foxbox, Alzinga Falgon, Caitlin P, Sith Lord 906, Vladimirovna, The Taz 96, Kengo X77, and Alistair Bernadotte. Thank you all so much.